Yeah, right. You're right. You're here for me. Right for me. No, 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 no. No, that's not. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
From across the room. You've been discriminating against me and discriminating against some people in the briefing room. And I'm saying that this is the US, this is not China, this is not Russia. This is not Russia.
Okay.
What you are doing, you are making a mockery of the First Amendment.
Decorum, please.
It's been 7 months. You've not called on me. You've done my messages. I'm saying that that's not right. That's not right.
Fun times. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Welcome to the press briefing room.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Ted Lasso cast. Instead of answering a legitimate reporter's question, who, by the way, you haven't answered a question in 7 months from, you'd rather play games with Ted Lasso cast. Great job, Biden administration. You speak for Biden, don't you, KJP? Simon will be a guest on the show in a couple of minutes, so I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it. But I will say this for now. If you can't stand the heat, get the hell out of the kitchen, KJP. If you can't stand the propaganda, get the hell out of the White House. Coming up, Simon says, no, Simon doesn't says, because Karine Jean-Pierre, the Biden mouthpiece, refuses to call on him, and he's more than qualified to be asking a question in that room. What are they afraid of? We'll play a little Simon Says when we come back. When America is in crisis with Democrats in charge, the Democrats tend to bring in Hollywood for damage control. And this past Monday, the White House did just that, hosting the cast from Ted Lasso to discuss mental health with Joe and Jill Biden. But the real story happened in the briefing room just after that. Simon Ateba, the chief White House correspondent for Today News Africa, who has an impressive background story as a journalist itself, confronted KJP for repeatedly never calling on him, not a single question in over 7 months. And, well, things got heated.
Yeah, right. You're right. You're here for me. Right for me. No, 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 no. No, that's not. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
From across the room. You've been discriminating against me and discriminating against some people in the briefing room. And I'm saying that this is the US, this is not China, this is not Russia. This is not Russia.
Okay.
What you are doing, you are making a mockery of the First Amendment.
Well, joining me now is that journalist, chief White House correspondent for Today News Africa, Simon Ateba. Thank you, Simon, for joining us. Listen,
Thank you for having me.
You know, I've watched you over the years, and you don't put up with them ignoring you, and good for you. Good for you. But still, in 7 months, Karine Jean-Pierre has not called on you, yet those surrounding you, they've gotten questions. But yet somehow they're pointing the finger at you for being disruptive.
Yeah, it's crazy. She's not called on me in 7 months, including when President Biden received 50 African leaders in Washington, D.C. in December for the Africa Leaders Summit. So to put it in context, you have almost all the leaders of the African continent who are being hosted by President Biden in Washington, D.C. And the African journalist who covers the White House and focuses on U.S.-Africa relations is not given the opportunity to ask even one question.
You know, Simon, you said that you think KJP, you think she looks down on you. First of all, why do you think that? And how does that make you feel?
You know, I feel unseen, and I feel sad also for the country, for the First Amendment, the fact that the country is almost turning like China. You know, in many countries around the world, you ask a question to the people in charge, they retaliate, they discriminate against you. And I didn't know that we'd face, you know, certain things in the US. The US is the most advanced country in the world because here we have freedom. You can ask questions without fear of retaliation. But I've seen that in the Biden White House is different.
And, you know, I watch other journalists from other news organizations not pointing the finger at KJP for not asking you a question in 7 months, but pointing the finger at you. Explain that.
So one of the guys who pointed the finger at me, he used to be very disruptive during the Trump administration. And he would go on CNN to brag about it. And that's the guy who was trying to lecture me. He was removed from the White House Correspondent Association last year because he became violent in the Rose Garden. He works for CNN. He used to work for Playboy. And also there are other journalists who are in the front row who get multiple questions every day. And so when I'm challenging KJP to call on me, I'm almost telling them, you know, you guys have to realize that there are people behind in the briefing room behind you who have not gotten any question in the past 7 months and even maybe 1 year.
You know, and I remember Jim Acosta being absolutely disruptive, almost a maniacal nut job during the Trump administration. He actually made a career for himself by doing that. He got a 3-hour show on CNN on weekends. Let's play the ladies of The View. They don't like what you did. Take a listen.
No, they attacked me. They attacked me.
Yeah, listen, well, we're going to show. Go ahead.
I think he's clearly a horrible person and maybe shouldn't be in the White House briefing room. However, he does have what's called a hard pass, I believe, which means he doesn't have a seat assigned. So when other people don't show up, he gets to ask questions. He is with...
like at the Emmys and the Oscars.
Basically, he's a filler.
He's a big watcher of The View and not a fan of ours.
He is?
I think you have to look at your behavior, sir. You have to look at your behavior because nobody wants to be jumped.
Hey, Simon, I have a hard pass, too, for the White House. I have one. I know how it works. And you're right. The first 2 rows, they get all the questions. In the back rows, it's whoever she decides. And I'm just trying to figure out, there are 2 African Americans. You have Sonny Hostin and you have Whoopi Goldberg, who you think would want a question from Simon asked and answered by Karine Jean-Pierre. But no, what's your response to Whoopi and?
No, they should be ashamed of themselves. You know, the 2 Black women there, they are always talking about equity, you know, being there for the little guy and racism and trying to defend Black and brown people. But here I am, Black from Africa. I've not had a question in 7 months, while Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, calls on people from across, you know, from different continents except Africa. And the Black women on The View found that acceptable. That it's disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. Simon, I hope they listen to you. I hope KJP hears you. I hope the comms department, and I know how it works in that room right off the briefing room. I hope they're hearing it. And I hope they start looking and that video we just showed of you, that was our own James Rosen right behind you. He gets a question once in a while, but not enough. Those first 2 rows, the CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, Fox News gets, you know, constant questions. Give those people on that screen right there a few more shots at answering the question.